she's a faith leader. But that's not, I think, what drives her. I think that there's something beyond just being a pastor. She's the executive director of Faith in Florida. They are doing God's work, fighting against DeSantis's a lot of his policies to help free people. Let me welcome the great Reverend Rhonda Thomas to the Karen Hunter Show. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
I am awesome. First of all, thank you. Thank you for what you do.
No problem. I do it. I think it's just a calling.
So walk us through that, because I feel like we have abdicated our power to other people. So whether it's a pastor or a political leader or whatever, the symbiosis between what you do and what we do should be, in unison, right? Like,
Right.
you can't really operate without the people. Like, we come together like that. So, and we all, I feel like, have a responsibility to participate. So what was the moment that you started this organization or decided to do it? Like, what happened that you said, okay, I'm gonna do something, this is enough?
Well, Faith in Florida, we fall up under a national umbrella. We're in 41 counties in the state of Florida. It's 67 in total, but we're actually organizing multiracial, multi-faith leaders in the state of Florida around racial, social, and economic justice. We realize we have more in common than what separates us, but we're unfortunately, Black people are always impacted different. And so, and that's what we organize around. It's a little, Faith in Florida is an organization that's separate from the church that my husband and I pastor. But I just think that God has called me to go beyond the pulpit.
I love it. Which Jesus went beyond the pulpit. Jesus wasn't even in the pulpit. I mean, I feel like, can
That's
we,
right.
pastors, come on, y'all? Jesus was in them streets. He was not
That's
even, he
right.
didn't even, the only time we saw him in the daggone temple was when he was turning over the tables, cussing people out in Jesus language. Like, he was at the river. He was over here, over there with the leper. He was at the woman at the well. He was over, he was where the people were.
That's right. He met the people where they are, where they were. And I don't think it's not being done enough in ways where it's leaving impact. And so I'm just grateful God called me to go to this link and this length because I'm not afraid to be among the people. And I guess I'm not really afraid to fight those who come up against us either.
See you. I see you. All right. So what does fighting look like? All right. So you got this governor primarily because Andrew Gillum lost, and just by a nose.
Yeah,
Then Florida came out and said, okay, we want to reenfranchise formerly incarcerated. That was about 2 million people were getting their voting rights back. But
that's
then
right.
because DeSantis got elected, he instituted a poll tax that disenfranchised, made people scared to vote. And he got elected again. And he looked at that like a mandate that he could do whatever he wants, and then started instituting all of these very draconian rules to eliminate books and look at, all kinds of things in education and around stand your ground and just foment this fear. For you in Faith in Florida, what is the point of entry, and what's the impact that you've been having in terms of turning this back?
Okay, it's amazing that you brought up with Andrew Gillum because he only lost by 33,000 votes. And when you look at Florida, you have to wonder, was that even counted right? And then secondly, with over 1.5 million returning citizens during that time in 2018, I was the campaign manager for the Let My People Vote, where we were out there just fighting. And so we end up once again with a governor that in the eyes of many Black people, many and brown, it looks as if hate is being legislated. And so when the attack on the public school system, and we understand what that attack can possibly lead to, with the public education is it could possibly lead to back to segregation. But we tried very hard to meet with the Board of Education, who was literally over this whole mandate of um, either erasing African American history or our educators teaching a watered down version. And this watered down version would teach something as if Black people benefit from being slaves. And so I just personally, I couldn't see what benefit being beaten down and raped and treated as less humans where the benefits fell in. And so the Board of Education, he said he would meet with us. He turned us down several times. He stood us up, not turn us down, but he stood us up. And so I just then
wait. So y'all had a meeting time?
Yeah,
he was supposed to show up, and he just didn't.
Nope. And I was there. We were there with clergy. Can we talk about it? Is it anything we could negotiate? Is it something? Because the fact of the erasing the teaching of African American history was not going to happen. And then the watered down version is not the truth. And so it was so important for me that it be taught in a way where it was raw and it was real. And I think that if you had left it in the hands of our educators with the curriculum that they had, it would have been done in a very meaningful way, and not in a way, it would not have been taught in a way to offend white children. But if you want to talk about being offended, I mean,
I feel like that's part of the gaslighting, right? That somehow teaching actual history is going to hurt the feelings of white children, because what you're saying is that they should be identifying with the slave owners. They should be identifying with the oppressor and oppressive behavior. Like, is that what we're saying, that these children identify with that? And that's why, because it doesn't make any sense that on its face, they should be offended by anything, yet we have to, capitulate to this. It's really crazy. We're talking with Reverend Rhonda Thomas. She is the executive director of a nonprofit. It is Faith in Florida. They are fighting DeSantis, and I think it's beyond DeSantis. You're fighting this kind of erasure of history and the injustice that comes with it. And you've installed this curriculum. How do people in Florida, if there's a teacher listening right now, because there are a lot of teachers listening,
right? So we didn't really create a curriculum. What we did was we created a toolkit, and we gave this toolkit. We wanted, my goal was 500 congregations in the state of Florida will commit and take a pledge with Faith in Florida using our toolkit to give them the freedom to teach Black history from our congregations. Because Black people are such creative, we're very creative. So it gave us the liberation to teach it, whether it's through the Word of God, through the lenses of the gospel, or through music, through dance, through the arts. We could work all of that within our own congregations, and then we still have history that sits in the pews. That can not just share their story, but even teach their story in a ways that if we're not attentive, we could easily see some of these systems being repeated just in a more modern way. And so I got these congregations, they were on board, they're on board, but it began to expand much larger than my vision, because I was focused on Florida. I was focused on the Black church, but then since we organized multiracial, multi-faith, I have white congregations led by white faith leaders who said, we know we can't teach it like the Black church can, but we can teach it in a way of accountability. And then in some of our rural areas, we have some of our mosques with the Muslim community saying, we will teach it as well, because we understand what it's like to not be accepted, to be not liked. And they wanted to we're on board with African American history being taught from the faith lenses. And when that happened, we now have over 22 states
Oh,
that have joined the state of Florida using our toolkit to say that we too will take the pledge and commit to teaching Black history using the toolkit that you have provided.
I love it. Faithinflorida.org, faithinflorida.org. It's in English, Spanish, Haitian Creole, Sac Passe. You can go to the toolkit, which is right there, tools and resources, and learn more and get involved that way. If you are, so it's not just if you're in Florida, it's anywhere you can engage with this. I love it. I saw somewhere that you and your husband are receiving death threats for just wanting to do this. It's baffling to me that someone would want to harm you for just wanting to liberate young people with with information. What has that been like, and when is how are you handling it, Reverend Thomas?
Florida is still the South. And I know they get it mixed up with Mickey Mouse and South Beach, but it's still the South. And it has been not just attacks on myself and my church, but several churches in the state of Florida. And so we had to and as well encourage other congregations to make sure that we have safety measures in place. We've had to do a active shooters training.
Wow.
It's we right after the shooting we launched in July. Then we had a shooting in Jacksonville where a young white man went and did a mass shooting in the Dollar General store. And so right after that, when I say right after, I mean days after, a white gentleman comes to my congregation and he does all the wrong thing. Well, he come in the middle of the beginning of the middle of a service, and he goes to the front row and bypass the ushers. You know that whole tradition thing that we
Oh
got.
no.
Yeah, you know. And
But that
so
was that. But that was good because you knew for sure he wasn't there to worship.
exactly. And so he stayed for that, and he then go to the restroom. And one of my members, being hospitable, and she said, "Well, thank you for coming to join us and visiting with us." And he said, "Well, I just left Jacksonville."
Mm.
And then he made the statement, "I'm out visiting Black churches." And so normally we wouldn't have thought, I mean, well, why are you now just visiting Black churches, knowing that you just left a part of Florida where there was a shooting that targeted Black folks? It gave some warnings. One of our churches in Opaka, Florida, which is outside of Orlando, got a bomb threat. They didn't realize it, but the bomb threat came through the police department. The police department comes and break up the service.
Mm.
And then we have one where they came and broke the windows out of the church. And so it's these type of threats. And so, after we've done the active shooters training, law enforcement kind of confirmed that there's still an attack on the Black church. And unfortunately, with us being this persistent in a way of we will teach our own history and it won't be a watered down version, it just seems like the attack has enhanced in various churches across the state. So I've been getting letters and some other churches have or calls. I just think that Black people are obviously a powerful group of people. And sometimes I don't think we even understand how powerful we are, but also the fact that our history is so rich. And if we really understand and get to, and it's not just for children, because you'll see it in the toolkit, the resources and that material can really apply to all ages.
Yes. And should, we are all woefully miseducated. There's no shame. And, I like the idea of parents studying with children, but you're really learning yourself. One of the greatest gifts I gave myself was teaching high school students English on Saturday, English grammar, and I realized how much I missed in school. And so it was a way for me to shore up some of the gaps that I had while I was teaching. I was learning. It was a beautiful thing. So I like this because anybody can come in and engage with it. So that's what
Yes.
makes it really user friendly. Reverend Rhonda Thomas is here. Faithinflorida.org is the organization. Faith in Florida. She is the executive director. Are you nervous? I know fear is not in your purview, but did you ever think you would be in a time like I don't know how old you are, but I never thought I would live to see something my mama and grandmama had to deal with. You know, I never thought I would have to live through something. I thought we were through it. Where are we right now? Both spiritually and actually.
I think actually we are experiencing history presented in a more modern way. They've actually modernized slavery, where we can't really, if you don't know your history, you wouldn't recognize it, that it's just been modernized. When I think of my own history, my class was the first class to eat in the cafeteria when I was in the first grade. And so my neighborhood, we were the second family to move on our street. And then all of a sudden, you know, the neighborhood changed where it was an all Black neighborhood. I don't know where everybody else went. And the fact that I can remember my father company picnic. He worked at Eastern Airline, and it was two picnics. One was for the Black employees and one was for the white employees because Black
What?
people couldn't go on South Beach. You needed
What?
a pass to get
Wait,
on that beach.
Black people could not go on South Beach?
No, 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 we were not, unless you were a maid working and you had to show ID to get my mother-in-law still have her ID. So you had to show ID to go across that bridge. And so this is in my era. And then to know that we're so close to repeating that cycle if we're not attentive of what's going on. Secondly is if our children if they don't know where they come from, they would never be able to identify the repeated cycle. And so this is where we are. So I can almost see time actually being repeated, and it's being repeated and passed through even legislation. And so with oppressing and suppressing votes, you know, it's almost as if you're about to pull out the jar and guess how many jelly beans are in it.
Yes.
So but I would have never thought that. I just didn't think that it will be repeated in a way where it could be just as vicious as it was with my grandmother and my great grandmother. And so their voice, my grandmother and my great grandmother voice was more silent. I just think that we're living in a time where we can't afford to be silent. And someone has to say something. And I just believe that God He's raising Black women to do some powerful stuff. And I just managed to fall in line for this season to just continue to push, fight, and encourage our rich history being taught from generation to generation. So my son is 28 years old. He taught my first Black history class. And, we were going to do it together as a joint, but when he started, he was not going to make me look bad. So I just sat at the feet of wisdom of my 28-year-old son. And when he started talking about just home, Miami-Dade County, along with an area that was once called Colored Town and how it was prospering with Black wealth and the Black economics. And then they decided to bring 95 straight through that community, and it disrupted Black wealth. And so that was history that was being taught just from home. And so he said, you may not want to say you're from Miami-Dade County once I tell you what Mr. Dade did.
Mm.
And so he said, and then he talked about the Negro War that was in the Seminole area of Florida, which is Orlando and Hillsborough. But he made it a comparison where young people could relate. And he used the comparison with the Negro War, with what took place with his classmate, Trayvon Martin and George Zimmerman. And so he made it so relatable where when you have young people, and I'm talking about our millennials, Gen Zs, and youth on the edge of their seat, wanting to know more about history. But he also did an awakening for the Christians when he talked about how many slaves King James owned. You know?
What? Now you're gonna send me down the rabbit hole, which I love doing. Yes, I'm gonna call you the Right Reverend Ron Thomas is here.
I run my fingers through her hair, and she smiles and says that she loves me. Isn't it lovely when the one